That setup, by the way, the chuppah used to be just either a colored canopy where you sent them off for their first intimacy, or the apartment or home of the groom. Right? So these two ceremonies, by the way, in the middle of them was a ketubah. The ketubah is not necessary for this relationship at all. The ketubah is not a wedding document that affects anything. The ketubah was designed to protect women from men who too simply and easily could divorce them summarily. The ketubah basically set up a set of obligations in the event of divorce and in the event of death that gave the woman economic support. So that a man couldn't, prior to the ketubah, a man could, give a woman a goat, Hareh Mekudeshet Li, and then the next week or day say, you know what, it's not working out for me. And now she is potentially pregnant, whatever the story, right? And he can say, okay, by the way, here's your divorce bill. And she, once again, since he is initiating the relationship, creating isurim for her, by the way, not for him, he can affect another marriage, right? He's creating isurim for her. He has the right to send her away and release her from those obligations, right? That is the setup of traditional Kiddushin. Now, it's no question that that's challenging and problematic. And problematic for us in particular because of the embedded frame of the patriarchy stuck inside of it. Despite the fact that this is ownership, though, I want to say it's a unique kind of ownership. While you learn in the Gemara that kicha mistei afron, you learn that just like you acquire a piece of land, you acquire a woman. Kikach ish isha, when a man acquires a woman, and Abraham acquired the Marat HaMachpelah, the same language is used. So it's property. However, there is a difference. The difference in the rabbis say, you can't, well, with anything else you own, you are essentially free to do with it as you wish. You own it. However, quote, in Kiddushin, Bet Amud Aleph in Tosafot, he says, a wife is not like a loaf of bread that may be shared with others. By the way, it's really an important, humorous a little bit, but an important statement. One can buy a loaf of bread and do with it what one wants, eat it, give it away, right? You can't say, here's my wife, enjoy. Have a meal, right? So, right? You were hoping, huh? But no. The rabbis, therefore, are using the language of kinyan, but they're nervous about it. So they understand their nervousness about it, but they need another language. So the language they use is Kiddushin. Now, Kiddushin actually really comes from Hekdesh, from assigning something to the temple precinct, or giving it to God, or to the priestly class, right? So when you makdish something and you say, this goat for the temple, it becomes immediately prohibited for you to do anything with it for your benefit. You've changed its status by a word, by saying, this goat for the temple, now you can't, I mean, if you say, this horse for the temple, you can't ride it. The moment you say that, it's no longer in your control at all. So there is something about Hekdesh that transfers the status of something without, Hekdesh, you don't own it actually, right? So they wanted to create a scenario of sanctification which changes the status of something, which is like ownership but not completely like ownership. And they created a scenario in which marriage was about and not about ownership, was about sanctification but not about sanctification to the temple, right? And this is why it was named Kiddushin. Now, here's the challenge for us. When you go to the material following the setup of the relationship, which creates obligations, and you go to the celebration. In other words, first the Erusin, which is essentially a blessing, and then an exchange of rings, then the signing of the ketubah, and then the nisuin, which is essentially drinking a glass of wine and saying 7 blessings and sending the bride and groom off to have sex. right? That's the wedding ceremony, right? I want you to open up the pages to what you've got, and I want to delineate how this works, and then I want to blow it apart with a whole array of other interesting and challenging problems. First, the first brachas borei pri hagafen is page 5. The second bracha is a really interesting bracha because it's not clear why it's there. So, someone please read it. Anyone, blessed are you Hashem.
Blessed are you Hashem our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with his commandments, and has commanded us regarding forbidden unions, who forbade betrothed women to us, and permitted women who are married to us through canopy and consecration. Blessed are you Hashem, who sanctified his people Israel through canopy and consecration.
All this bracha says is now that you are related to each other be'erusin, don't think you're going to have sex yet. This is what it says. Who has commanded us regarding forbidden unions and forbade betrothed women to us. And permitted women only who have done nisuin with us. So there's a month to 6 months to a year of time between erusin and nisuin. So what do you think happened? Well, what happened was people would be set up in erusin, and then the families would blink their eyes and not watch, and the couple would start having sex together. And there was indeed in Europe and other places a cultural acceptance of a year of test driving. And the rabbis clearly were nervous even earlier. So what did they do? They created a bracha called Birkat Erusin, which does actually say nothing. It's a Birkat Shevach, right? It doesn't effectuate anything. All it does is it says, oh, by the way, yes, you're betrothed, but no. Now, by the way, why was the time shortened between 6 months and a year to literally, minutes? Why?
So there wouldn't be that.
Exactly. Well, why was it long to begin with? It was long to begin with because they would set up the relationship, and then the groom's family had to prepare for a year to gather the materials, to save, to get the dowry together. There was money to pay. There was apartment to set up. It was a great year of setting up the circumstance by which then you usher the two 16-year-olds into a house together to have their... So the whole scenario here plays upon issues of ownership, which is problematic to us. We'll get back to that. And first sexual encounter, which for our community is a little bit more confusing, right? Because clearly very few people that you and I know are celebrating when they have their commitment ceremony their very first sexual union. So the whole structure of this, both on the patriarchal level, right? The problematic of the single, move of the man purchasing the sexual body of the woman, as well as the first sex frame of it, is really actually complicated for us. However, the second piece, and this is the piece that's really actually quite beautiful, please turn the page. The page that you're skipping, Harei Mikudeshet Li, in liberal services, take a look at 6 for 1 second, we've covered over the patriarchy of this text, of this ritual, by having women do it to men and men do it to women. In other words, men say Harei Mikudeshet Li and give a ring. Women say Harei Atam Mikudash Li and give a ring. Correct? However, what's really interesting is that I haven't seen it yet anywhere, but you recognize that if a woman commits adultery after marriage, it's a biblical violation of the prohibition of adultery. But if a man commits adultery, even though he's given a ring, there's nothing binding him biblically. There's